the Honorable Chief Minister, Madam Mehbooba Mufti ji, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Sharma, my colleague Dr. Jitendra Singh, the Deputy Chief Minister, Dr. Nirmal Singh, other distinguished ministers, dignitaries, members of the faculty, and most important, the students who've been conferred with the degrees and honors today, and other distinguished guests present at this convocation. Let me at the very outset thank the Honorable Chancellor and his colleagues at the university for having extended me this invitation to associate with the 17th convocation of the Jammu University. I've, of course, for many decades had an opportunity to closely look at this university and the beautiful green campus that you have. In fact, there are very few universities in the country which capture the environment of a campus. Because most universities are an administrative building with affiliated colleges spread all over. And therefore, the environment of a campus which leads to the personality development of a student and makes his stay in the university most memorable part of his life gets missed out. But Jammu University is one of those fortunate universities to have a large green campus. It also had a number of affiliated colleges. And I was particularly delighted to read the detailed text of the Vice Chancellor's speech today, which actually showed the manner in which the university has moved up the accreditation ladder. And being in an exercise of self-praise is never a virtue. But when authorized agencies and institutional mechanisms rate you so high, that itself is an indication of how well the university itself is doing. It's producing scholars. Its subject curriculum from the kind of doctorates awarded today is spread over a large number of subjects. One obvious observation which the Honorable Governor and the Chief Minister made was that the girl students appear to be doing much better. But there was a second observation which enthused me. And that was that in this state there are still scholars who have shown an aptitude for studying traditional Indian languages. And therefore, from Sanskrit to Hindi, to Urdu, to Kashmiri, to Dogri, to Punjabi, to Buddhist studies, that is the width of the language courses, because it's extremely important for any society that even when we internationally compete and at the same time, we learn the languages of the world, but our own culture, our own language, our own literature, our poetry, which has held on our societies for years, is actually embedded in these languages. And for a university to confer a doctoral thesis on so many students in a cross-section of these languages was something that was a second factor which really impressed me today, besides the fact that, of course, the lady students appear to have done much better. A convocation of a university when you pass out with your degree actually commences a new phase of your life. As long as you are a student, you are substantially dependent on your families for support. It is the family's responsibility to maintain you. And suddenly having invested in you, and it's not only the families which have invested in you. These state-run universities are financed also by the taxpayer. And therefore the whole country has really invested in you. And having invested so largely in you, now a time comes for a person to choose the course of his or her direction in life. And today that's a challenge which is becoming more and more challenging. It's becoming more and more challenging because competitions are very stiff. Those who are able to retain only a level of mediocrity in their careers actually start losing out in the very beginning. Education is a great leveler. In education, it doesn't really matter which caste, which community, which family, which surname you belong to. If you actually see the changing nature of the world economy or Indian economy, and you look at today the largest companies in the country and compare it with the number of companies which existed prior to 1991. Prior to 1991, it was more regulatory. And post 1991, it is market determined. Most of the leaders today of the industry who've done exceedingly well are those who used a knowledge resource, who use the ability of their minds for creativity. And obviously, in the decades to come, this nature of economy globally, as also in India, is going to expand further. And therefore, people with the most modest of backgrounds, who really utilized that potential of education, went into some form of innovations, went into some form of skills, are the ones who are going to do well. They are not going to be satisfied with mere mediocrity. When you enter the world of your careers, you will find that there is a lot of crowding at the bottom. But there is always space on top which is vacant. And that space on top is there to be captured. And because that space on top is there to be captured, who are the ones who have a potential to reach that space? It's going to be only one of you who will be able to do that. And please remember, the way the situation in the world is changing, there is a great opportunity that has come in way of India. The world keeps facing its challenges. And in the last few years, India has started leaving its footprints behind. And when India is leaving its footprints behind, becoming one of the faster economies in the world, it obviously means that the opportunity for India and Indians is going to increase. We are looked at as one of the bright spots in the world. And over the next 1 or 2 decades, our potential to retain that position of a fast-growing economy, as China did in the last 3 decades, analysts believe now belongs to India. And most of you who got honored with degrees today are going to enter the career market in an India which is full of opportunities. The earlier generations entered India in the job market which was not full of those kind of opportunities. And therefore, whether you get on from the very beginning onto a fast track and then keep maintaining that lead, or you are satisfied with merely a mediocrity, is a conscious choice you have to make. Now, of course, I always wonder to myself as to, in this whole story, where does a state like Jammu and Kashmir stand? Conceptually, if all was well, with a limited population, a large area, the most beautiful spots in the world being here, God's gift of handicrafts being here, a good agriculture being here, the best of the pilgrim centers being here, and in terms of population, a limited numbers. And therefore, if all had been well historically, this should have been theoretically the most affluent part of this country. But unfortunately, the curse of insurgency struck us. And I must say, as a tribute to the academic fraternity here in all parts of the state, and I say this because I have also had an opportunity to interact with students over the last 20 years in the valley, because every time in the last 20 years there has been a parliamentary delegation. I have had the fortune of being a part of it. Amongst all the delegations that used to meet us, and when I used to come back, the most impressive used to be the students from the university there. And therefore, for the students across the state, in all the regions, to live in the midst of a disturbed environment and yet be able to academically excel. This is an unprecedented resilience which the young population of the state has been able to demonstrate. And I'm sure it's quite likely that ultimately it is this resilience and the opportunity that they see for themselves, which is an opportunity which probably may end up bringing what is the ultimate object as far as the state is concerned, which is to bring peace into the state and work for the development of the state. The state today is a challenging state to govern. It requires determination, it requires statesmanship, it requires capacity to face criticism and yet be able to work effectively towards this twin object of bringing a stable, peaceful society and ensure that regions develop. And the areas, one can see when I look at where the areas would develop, and would be of interest to the students who pass out, inherently, hill states, northeast states, except for the local produce, compared to others which are close to the seashore, etc., or close to the ports, have challenges as far as trade manufacturings are concerned. Some of those areas have a geographical disadvantage. But as I said, even in the midst of that geographical disadvantage, coupled with this curse of insurgency that we faced, if there is one great leveler which actually can change, there are some factors which are constant. The pilgrim centers are going to remain the same. The potential of tourism is going to remain the same. The potential of agriculture is going to remain the same. The one area we can make a difference, and that is when the Honorable Chief Minister said we need to work together, is to create a quality infrastructure in the state in terms of highways, in terms of tunnels, in terms of connectivity. And that is something which is being attempted. And the others, I think, is this large investment in the human resource of the state in terms of skill development and in terms of education. And therefore, when we need not merely isolated centers of excellence, but we need a whole sea of them. We don't need islands of excellence, we need a whole ocean of them. So that we have the great facility, and therefore the kind of investment in national level institutions which is being made here. And how to make sure that these institutions become successful running institutions. How they are able to nourish the best talent and provide the forum to the youngsters of this state itself. And the second, of course, is skill development. The state has been fortunate that people have been conferred, they're very good at handicrafts and so on. But then today's world requires people with skills to deal with almost any profession. And therefore, those who don't get the benefit of the highest level of education as far as quality is concerned, certainly can be skilled to enter into various professions itself. The other factor which all of you have to remember, that today, as far as your careers are concerned, in this changing world, in the globalized world, the job opportunities for you, the working opportunities for you are not merely local. You have to broaden your horizon and look almost everywhere outside, inside and outside the country. That is one advantage of a globalized world. There is a demographic differential which is taking place. And the demographic differential is that there are many, many societies across in the world which have lesser number of people than those who can manage their economies. And therefore, they are looking at men of talent, the best minds to come from elsewhere in order to run their systems. And with the expanding scope of education, we are being able to produce a lot more minds than what our economies can actually absorb. And that is why you see this expanding Indian diaspora. So both outside and inside the country, there's a huge scope, and therefore you have to look beyond geographical boundaries and think in terms of not merely baby steps, but wider steps to be taken. And I'm quite certain that with this new degree that you have today, suddenly one day in your life brings out a major challenge and a major change. Boys suddenly become men, and girls graduate into being ladies. Now they have to think of themselves, their careers, their futures. And the society and your families having invested in you, I am sure the rest of the life is your opportunity to reciprocate and give back, as the Honorable Governor said, what the society has done for you. I wish you and the Jammu University all the very best in the years to come.